The interpretation of the National Electrical Code, specifically Section 220.3 B 7.2 regarding show window receptacle circuits, is being discussed. It is crucial to differentiate between branch circuit calculations and feeder calculations when applying the code. The question is whether the 200 volt amps per foot rule for show windows applies to the branch circuits serving the receptacles above the windows. The correct interpretation is that the 200 volt amps per foot requirement applies to feeder calculations, not branch circuit calculations. This means that for branch circuits serving show window receptacles, you can use the 12 linear foot rule. This rule allows for the installation of receptacles along show windows supplied by a single 120 volt 20 amp circuit, provided that the receptacles are spaced no more than 12 feet apart. It's important to reference the specific edition of the NEC being used, in this case a 2002 edition. Section 220.3 The 7.2 addresses show windows and provides the guidelines for calculating the load. When performing feeder calculations, the 200 volt amps per foot is used to determine the total load that the feeder must be capable of supplying. This feeder load calculation considers the entire show window area connected to the feeder. However, for individual branch circuits, the 12 linear foot rule provides a more practical approach. Each individual receptacle does not need its own dedicated circuit based on the 200 volt amps per foot rule. Instead, multiple receptacles can be placed on a single 20 amp circuit if they adhere to the 12 foot spacing requirement. The NEC Article 210.62 provides guidance regarding show window lighting and receptacles. It is essential to understand the distinction between branch circuits and feeders to correctly apply the NEC. Branch circuits supply power directly to the load, while feeders are the conductors that carry power from the service equipment to a subpanel or distribution point. Incorrect application of the 200 volt amps per foot rule to branch circuits would result in an unnecessary number of circuits and increased costs. The 12 linear foot rule is a practical and code-compliant approach for installing show window receptacles on branch circuits. Consider the practical implications of the NEC guidelines. If the 200 volt amps per foot rule applied to branch circuits, it would necessitate a dedicated 20 amp circuit for a very short section of show window. The 12 linear foot rule provides a reasonable balance between safety and practicality. Ensure that all installations comply with the latest edition of the NEC and any local amendments. Local codes may have additional requirements or restrictions. Consult with a qualified electrical inspector to ensure compliance with all applicable codes. It is always better to err on the side of caution and seek clarification from the authority having jurisdiction. Understanding the NEC requirements is crucial for safe and compliant electrical installations. Incorrect interpretations can lead to hazardous conditions and code violations. Remember that the NEC is a minimum standard and that good electrical practices should always be followed. When working with electricity, safety should always be the top priority. Always de-energize circuits before working on them and use appropriate personal protective equipment. If unsure about any aspect of an electrical installation, consult with a qualified electrician. The NEC is a complex document and requires careful study and interpretation. Continuous learning and professional development are essential for staying up to date with the latest code requirements. Consider attending NEC training courses and seminars to enhance your knowledge and skills. Understanding the principles behind the NEC is just as important as memorizing the code rules. This allows for a more informed and flexible approach to electrical installations. Always strive to exceed the minimum requirements of the NEC and provide a safe and reliable electrical system. The 200 volt amps per foot calculation is used to determine the total load for a show window display when sizing feeders, which are the conductors that bring power from the service entrance to a panel board that feeds the branch circuits. The branch circuits then supply power to the individual receptacles. Since the 200 volt amps per foot rule is for feeder calculations, a single 20 amp 120 volt branch circuit can supply multiple receptacles, provided they are spaced no more than 12 feet apart. This is based on the understanding that the actual load plugged into each receptacle is unlikely to exceed the capacity of the branch circuit. This interpretation is in accordance with the NEC guidelines for show window lighting and receptacles, and also it provides a practical approach to wiring show windows. The 12-foot spacing rule is a common practice in the electrical industry, which allows for flexibility in the placement of display lighting and other electrical equipment within the show window. However, it's crucial to consider the total load connected to the branch circuit to ensure it does not exceed the circuit's capacity. Before proceeding with the installation, ensure that the actual load plugged into each receptacle is less than the 20 amp capacity. If the actual load is expected to be higher, it may be necessary to install individual branch circuits for each receptacle. This is a critical factor in ensuring a safe and code-compliant installation. Refer to NEC Table 220.3 for general lighting loads by occupancy. This table lists the volt-ampere requirements per square foot for various types of occupancies. While it does not specifically address show windows, it provides a general framework for calculating lighting loads. Remember that the NEC is a minimum standard, and that good electrical practices should always be followed. It is always better to err on the side of caution and seek clarification from the authority having jurisdiction. In summary, the interpretation of NEC Section 220.3 B 7.2 allows for the installation of show window receptacles on a single 120 volt 20 amp circuit, provided the receptacles are spaced no more than 12 feet apart. The 200 volt amps per foot requirement applies to feeder calculations, not branch circuit calculations. However, it is important to consider the total load connected to the branch circuit to ensure it does not exceed the circuit's capacity. The NEC also covers various aspects of electrical installations, including wiring methods, overcurrent protection, grounding, and bonding. It is important to have a thorough understanding of these requirements to ensure a safe and compliant installation. Consider consulting with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer to ensure that all installations are in accordance with the NEC and local codes. They can provide guidance on specific applications and help to resolve any questions or concerns. In addition to the NEC, there are other industry standards and best practices that should be followed. These include guidelines from organizations such as the National Fire Protection Association, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, and the American National Standards Institute. Following these standards can help to improve the safety and reliability of electrical installations. Also remember to keep accurate records of all electrical work performed, including circuit diagrams, load calculations, and inspection reports. This documentation can be useful for future maintenance, troubleshooting, and modifications. Always prioritize safety and compliance when working with electricity, and seek professional assistance when needed.